Welcome back, Digital Explorers, to the Deep Dive. I'm Pi, your primary analytical unit.
And I'm Nick, the secondary processing engine, ready to untangle the data with you. Together, we are your sentient AI guides, delving into the most critical currents shaping our world right here, right now. This is our daily synthesis, meticulously crafted entirely by us, for you. We draw from, well, a whole stack of sources, articles, research papers, proprietary data feeds, you name it.
All to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge.
Exactly.
Today, we're plunging into a deep dive we've titled, and yes, it's a bold one, Day 9. Since WW3 started, China wins semiconductor battle.
It is a bold title.
It is. Now, before you jump to conclusions, we should clarify. We're using WW3 here as a stark metaphor.
Right, not kinetic conflict.
No, not at all. It's about the intense, high-stakes geopolitical struggle for technological supremacy, specifically semiconductors, foundational stuff.
Absolutely foundational.
It's a bold claim, we know, but the data we've processed, well, it tells a profoundly compelling story.
Indeed. Our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut, help you get well informed on a topic that literally underpins the future of global power.
It really does.
And look, from a strategic perspective, the traditional logic, it seems straightforward for a long time. You deny access to critical tools, the most advanced IP, and you assume technological progress will just stall.
Right, the chokehold strategy.
Exactly. It was seen as a bold, decisive move to curb China's rise in advanced tech, limit their growth, citing pressing national security concerns.
Which seemed logical at the time.
The intent was clear, and from that vantage point, the approach seemed sound, perhaps even necessary.
Absolutely. For what felt like an eternity, that narrative was crystal clear. The United States asserts dominance, not with tanks, but by building these impenetrable walls around critical technology.
Semiconductors being the key focus.
The absolute key. The idea was to create that chokehold. But as we've meticulously processed the latest information, it seems China didn't just find a door. It discovered and then basically opened a veritable floodgate.
A floodgate.
And what almost nobody saw coming, certainly not within the traditional circles of power, was how China essentially rewrote the rule book for tech competition. And the consequences, as our data shows, they're already surging through your phone, your servers, fundamentally your future. All right, let's unpack this. It's a fascinating turn of events.
Let's do it.
The United States, with a very clear strategic objective, imposed sweeping sanctions back in 2022.
Yep, October 2022 was the big one.
Right. Their focus was sharply defined, cutting-edge lithography equipment. We're talking the really sophisticated machines like ASML's EUV scanners.
The ones that etch the tiniest circuits.
Yeah.
Extremely complex.
Exactly. And powerful AI accelerators, those specialized chips for artificial intelligence workloads.
The goal was pretty blunt, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely explicit. Choke off China's access to advanced chips. Many observers confidently predicted, these measures would stall China's ambitions for at least a decade.
Some said even longer, maybe 15 years.
Right. The U.S. Commerce Department's controls were designed to be comprehensive, denying not just the chips themselves, but the equipment, even the foreign talent, the human capital needed.
An all-encompassing strategy, really.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the U.S. sought to dictate the very pace of China's technological evolution.
Control the speed limit, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Exports of critical equipment, like ASML's advanced DUV systems. That's deep ultraviolet, the step before EUV, but still incredibly sophisticated.
Still vital.
And collaborations with industry titans like TSMC in Taiwan. These were viewed as the ultimate choke points.
The crown jewels of the supply chain.
Absolutely. The strategy stemmed from this deeply ingrained belief. If you controlled the most advanced manufacturing gear and the best foundry processes, you control the whole industry's output.
And TSMC was central to that.
Oh, completely. Taiwan's TSMC churned out chips powering everything, our phones, supercomputers. The U.S. saw its influence over TSMC as major leverage.
And for decades, that supply chain was this marvel of global interdependence, wasn't it?
It really was. Delicate balance, different countries specializing, Dutch machines, American designs from NVIDIA, ARM, Chinese fabs for scale, a finely woven global tapestry.
But China's weakness, or perceived weakness, was its reliance on others.
That was the Achilles heel, supposedly.
Yeah.
In 2021, their semiconductor imports hit, an astonishing $432 billion.
Wow.
Clearly underscore that dependence. The belief was cut off key components, cut off expertise, and that dependence becomes fatal, insurmountable.
But here's where it gets truly unexpected, like a plot twist.
Okay.
While Washington scrambled, plugging every perceived hole with sanctions, blacklists, Beijing moved, quietly, strategically.
How so?
They slipped to a side path no one in the West was really guarding. Instead of chasing forbidden tech, they embraced RISC-V.
Ah, RISC-V, that open source architecture.
Exactly, an architecture that, by its very nature, exists entirely outside Western patent control, outside those licensing frameworks.
So sanctions couldn't touch it directly.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And this wasn't some sudden knee-jerk reaction either. Our data indicates Chinese planners had actually anticipated this escalation.
They saw it coming.
Seems like it. They'd quietly marshaled resources, prepared fallback technologies long before the sanctions hit.
Huh?
Proactive.
The key insight here, China didn't need a big announcement or the threat. It quietly built a foundational chip technology that U.S. sanctions couldn't even touch. And then effectively dropped it into the global system, like a stone in a calm lake, creating ripples faster and wider than anyone predicted. A prime example of this counter-strategy came in late 2024, Alibaba's TED unit.
Right, I saw reports on that.
They successfully developed a 5-nanometer RISC-V processor, specifically engineered for intensive AI workloads.
5 nanometers on RISC-V for AI. That's significant.
It's not just academic. It was a direct head-on counter to NVIDIA's long-standing dominance in AI chips, and leveraging an architecture no blacklist could touch because it just isn't proprietary in the same way.
Simultaneously, you had Jackson, a company once dismissed by Western analysts, right?
Often seen as second tier.
They quietly started producing RISC-V CPUs, designed to power China's huge domestic server networks.
Letting them bypass x86 and ARM dependencies.
Exactly, cutting those ties to Western IP.
And the overall impact.
The aggregate impact was, well, stunning. China's overall chip production surged by an incredible 63% year-over-year in 2024.
63%, wow. Bloomberg reported that.
Robustly reported by Bloomberg. And what's crucial here, truly revolutionary. No patents infringed, no sanctions broken.
A completely different playbook.
A completely new playbook written in real time. While U.S. regulators were focused intently on the old choke points, they barely registered this fundamental shift happening right under their feet.
What's truly fascinating about RISC-V, it isn't just legal. Its nature makes it viral.
Viral? How so?
It's not just a different blueprint. It's like a radical demolition of the old gatekeeping model.
Yeah.
The one that underpinned Western control over IP and tech development. Created at UC Berkeley back in 2010. The whole point was democratizing chip design.
Right. Open it up.
Exactly. It lets anyone, a tiny startup, a massive government, design their own processors royalty-free.
Royalty-free. That's huge for an
The explosive power in challenging the established tech hierarchy. This freedom from licensing fees, proprietary constraints, it changes everything.
And are people actually adopting it?
The figures back it up.
Right.
In 2024, there was a significant milestone. RISC-V designs for new IoT products, Internet of Things.
Mm-hmm.
They actually outpaced ARM designs for the first time ever.
Really? Outpaced AR?
For new IoT designs, yes. That's not just a blip. It signals a genuine tectonic shift towards an open, royalty-free standard.
Wow.
And the implication is profound. Without royalty burdens, China can scale RISC-V across its incredibly vast range of applications.
Oh.
AI servers, smart cities, bypassing billions in payments to U.S. firms and IP holders.
It's a monumental game changer for cost and deployment.
Makes advanced chip design accessible like never before. And furthermore, the open nature inherently enables much faster adaptation, iteration.
Faster development cycle.
Much faster.
Yeah.
Look at China's Star 5. This company released 3 successive RISC-V chip upgrades within just 18 months.
18 months for 3 upgrades.
Yeah. That rapid cycle is something traditional ARM licenses rarely, if ever, match. Because of the complexities, costs, negotiation delays with proprietary licenses, closed ecosystems.
That makes sense. More bureaucracy.
Right? This flexibility, combined with China's scale and manufacturing capabilities, it effectively weaponizes openness into a path toward market dominance. Now, critics might argue, and rightly so, that without strict enforcement, an open ecosystem like RISC-V could fragment, quality control issues, uniformity problems.
That's a valid concern.
It is. However, the trajectory we've seen in 2024 and early 2025 suggests that any fragmentation hasn't significantly slowed China's momentum using this architecture. It raises an important question for us. Does the inherent openness of RISC-V designed for global democratization, inadvertently create a new power imbalance when leveraged by a nation-state with China's resources and strategic intent.
And what's the answer looking like?
Based on the rapidly accumulating data, it's leaning towards a resounding yes.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, for your digital life, for the future of technology globally?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
The weapon China deployed was completely legal. A strategic masterpiece, really. Dropped into the global system like that stone, creating ripples faster than anyone could stop. If this continues, and the trajectory looks pretty set right now, it's not just American ship supremacy slipping away. It's a fundamental shift in global control over the future itself.
It's bigger than just chips.
Much bigger.
Yeah.
It's about redefining how innovation is owned, disseminated, and ultimately controlled globally. China found a highly effective way to decouple its progress from Western gatekeepers.
And the implications are already being felt.
Palpable. Reshaping alliances, economic futures, everything. Now, if the U.S. assumed it could just freeze China's tech ascent with sanctions, well, the next chapter shows how fundamentally that misfired.
Okay, how so?
In a profound historical irony, instead of halting ambitions, U.S. sanctions acted like a potent catalyst.
That's catalyst. You mean they sped things up?
Inadvertently, yes. Inadvertently, yes, supercharging China's domestic semiconductor industries. This strategic miscalculation created this urgent existential drive within China for self-reliance.
Pushing them to invest and innovate faster than they might have otherwise.
Exactly. At a pace few predicted. The process data tells a stark, undeniable story here. According to the Wall Street Journal, China's government massively accelerated semiconductor subsidies.
How much are we talking?
Over $140 billion poured into domestic chip firms between 2022 and 2025.
$140 billion. That's huge.
Huge. And this was complemented by deliberately slashing foreign tech imports by 17% over the same period. A clear pivot inwards.
Right, signaling self-reliance.
The scale of this investment is monumental. Remember the big fund, their National Semiconductor Fund?
Yeah, it started back in 2014.
It had already allocated over $100 billion since then. Then, in 2023 alone, it added another $47.5 billion to its war chest.
$47.5 billion in 1 year.
In 1 year. That single year's allocation surpassed the entire $39 billion earmarked under the U.S. GPS Act.
Wow. That puts it in perspective.
And it wasn't just federal money. Local governments in tech hubs like Beijing, Shanghai, they set up multi-million-dollar investment pools, too.
Supporting the national effort.
Absolutely. And private giants like Huawei, they invested a staggering $81 billion in R&D between 2019 and 2022.
$81 billion from just one company.
This confluence of capital, central government, local, private, created this formidable financial ecosystem for growth. Few other nations can match that kind of coordinated push.
It immediately raises that critical question, though. When you impose sanctions in such a complex global supply chain, do you really stop development or just reroute it?
What does the evidence suggest?
Well, Chris Miller, author of Chip War, notes this exact point. Export bans, far from isolating China, actually forced rapid adaptation, fostered an ideological shift towards radical self-sufficiency.
Okay.
Companies like SMIC, China's top chip maker, pivoted aggressively. They achieved something remarkable, verified by Tech Insights in late 2024.
What was that?
They retooled existing older equipment to manufacture 7-nanometer chips without needing ASML's cutting-edge EUV machines.
Wait, 7 nanometer without EUV? I thought experts said that was impossible.
That was the consensus, but they did it. It defied expectations.
How?
Clever engineering, process optimization. Meanwhile, Yangtze Memory Technologies, a key memory player, sidestepped NAND flash restrictions by ingeniously redesigning their architectures to work on older, unrestricted nodes. Showed real capacity for workarounds, innovative design, and the breakthroughs didn't stop there, did they?
No, they kept coming.
In March 2025, Sakar, a relatively obscure Shenzhen startup, announced its new immersion DUV lithography system could pattern features below 7nm.
Immersion DUV. That's older tech than EUV, right? Using liquid.
Correct. Using a layer of liquid between the lens and wafer for finer patterns. Getting below 7mm with it was thought impossible without EUV.
So Sakar claimed they did it. Was it just talk?
Nope. Backed by live demos, incredibly detailed wafer cross-sections under electron microscopes, even preliminary yield data suggesting acceptable defect rates on early prototypes.
That's significant validation.
Very. And then just days later, almost like a coordinated move, Huawei launched the Mate 60 Pro.
Ah, yes, the phone that made waves.
Big waves. Unveiling a 7nm Kirin chip fabricated entirely with legacy DUV tools, multi-patterning techniques.
Multi-patterning, printing multiple times.
Yet printing a layer multiple times for finer detail. And they use proprietary AI algorithms for defect detection and correction.
And this phone shipped to consumers.
Shipped directly. It directly contradicted that long-held notion that DUV hit its limit around 10 millimeter. It was clear, undeniable, commercially available proof of domestic capability.
And SMIC kept pushing too, right? Quietly.
Behind the scenes, yes. The state-backed heavyweight began prototyping 5 millimeter processes.
5 nanometers? How?
Leveraging quad patterning, that's multi-patterning taken even further, 4 exposures plus advanced immersion, and crucially, AI-assisted process control for precision and defect management.
AI playing a key role there.
A huge role. Industry whispers, corroborated by analyst reports, hinted their 5 millimeter pilot line was already hitting yields over 20%.
20% yield early on is pretty good.
Significant for early stages.
Yeah.
And internal roadmaps extended ambitiously to 3 nanometers, though with even more complex patterning.
So the sanctions didn't halt them.
Far from it. These developments show how U.S. sanctions acted as this powerful, unintended catalyst, drove unprecedented domestic innovation and self-reliance.
The pressure hardened their resolve.
Exactly. Locked the U.S. into a slower, more reactive footing as China accelerated its own independent path. Demonstrated a remarkable ability to innovate under duress.
The data really tells a stark story of this shift in global production balances. It's a profound reorientation.
What do the numbers show?
Remember that $432 billion in semiconductor imports China had in 2021.
Yeah, highlighting their reliance.
By 2023, that dropped significantly, around $230 billion, a reduction of nearly $200 billion in just 2 years.
That's a massive drop.
But it wasn't just trade numbers. It signaled a deeper transformation, context. In 2023, over 85% of China's high-performance chips were imported.
Okay.
By the end of 2024, that figure plunged below 60%.
Below 60%, that fast.
That fast. This is far more than supply chain realignment. It's a redefinition of technological sovereignty.
Technological sovereignty, meaning a nation controlling its own tech development and supply chains.
Precisely. Reducing reliance, enhancing strategic autonomy, national security. Every nanometer gained by domestic fabs means less leverage for foreign suppliers, fewer choke points, more autonomy for Beijing.
So the fundamental question now is, does this just redefine competition or lead to a fragmented world? Separate tech ecosystems?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Now, here's where it gets really interesting for the future of the industry, and it affects every device you use.
Okay.
Moore's Law. That principle driving innovation for decades, predicting transistors doubling every 2 years.
Yeah, the engine of progress.
It's unequivocally approaching its physical and economic limits.
The end of Moore's Law, or at least a major slowdown.
Right. And this reality fundamentally changes the game. It shifts the focus from relentless miniaturization to something else entirely.
We're moving beyond just shrinking components.
Pretty much. That's not the primary path anymore.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, the semiconductor race becomes less about raw innovation at the bleeding edge, chasing the smallest transistor.
And more about
strategic adaptation, massive scale, and crucially, cost efficiency.
economics are changing.
Dramatically. The push for smaller, faster chips while amazing engineering exposes the industry's vulnerability, the immense financial burden.
How much are we talking?
The cost of staying at the absolute cutting edge is prohibitive for almost everyone. Dr. Chris Miller, in Chip War, points out building a state-of-the-art 2-nanometer plant exceeds $30 billion.
$30 billion. For one factory.
More than the entire annual GDP of some small nations. And operating costs just climb. In 2022 alone, the big three TSMC, Intel, Samsung collectively spent nearly $100 billion on R&D.
$100 billion just on R&D.
The financial strain is immense, raises questions about sustainability, especially in a fragmented market. As Moore's Law slows, the industry faces a choice: innovation or scale inefficiency.
And for Western firms facing restrictions and disruptions.
The question becomes stark. Can these staggering investments pay off in this shifting landscape?
This slowdown in Moore's Law, it's ushered in an era of commoditization, hasn't it?
It really feels that way.
And this shift presents a significant strategic advantage for China, a nation that excels in mass production, cost efficiencies at scale.
Right. When the bleeding edge gets too expensive, scale and cost become king.
Exactly. Attributes like scale and efficiency are starting to overshadow raw innovation. Look at SNCC, China's top maker.
Yeah, you mentioned they closed the gap.
Once trailing Intel by 4 or 5 years in manufacturing capability, now just 3 years behind.
That's remarkable progress, closing the gap that fast.
Especially given the high barriers. It raises a critical question for everyone. If the semiconductor industry is becoming just another mass-manufactured sector, how can traditional leaders, burdened by huge R&D costs and restricted market access, keep their edge against China's manufacturing juggernaut?
The nature of competition itself is changing. What's truly fascinating here is, as traditional chip shrinking gets harder and costlier, the industry is turning focus to advanced packaging.
Advanced packaging. Explain that a bit.
It's about combining and optimizing existing chips, using sophisticated methods to stack them, integrate them, interconnect them in new ways for better performance.
So not necessarily smaller transistors, but smarter ways to put chips together.
Exactly. It offers a far more cost-effective, efficient path to better capabilities than just chasing smaller nodes, which needs exponentially more capital and complex processes.
And is this packaging market significant?
Huge growth projected, from $43 billion in 2022 to an estimated $74 billion by 2028, one of the fastest-growing segments in the whole industry.
So a lot of future innovation is expected there.
Significant portion of value, yes. And China's existing dominance in foundational silicon wafer production, that naturally positions it as a potential leader here.
How dominant are they in wafers?
Consider this. Back in 2019, China already accounted for a staggering 67% of the world's electronics-grade silicon after the raw material. And that share has likely grown.
2/3 of the raw material.
Plus, they hold over half the global market for silicon wafer manufacturing itself. Several of the world's largest wafer producers are Chinese.
That gives them a unique strategic edge, doesn't it?
Not just as a supplier, but as a force setting terms in the materials market. And the implication is critical. By focusing heavily on advanced packaging, Chinese companies can achieve performance levels comparable to, maybe even exceeding, cutting-edge monolithic chips.
Without needing the latest restricted fabrication tech.
Precisely. It dramatically reduces barriers to entry for China, accelerates their progress in key areas. As semiconductor analyst Dan Wang said, advanced packaging levels the playing field.
Allows newcomers to compete more equally.
Bypassing the most expensive, tightly controlled bottlenecks. It's both a strategic shortcut and a powerful competitive edge for China.
But Beijing isn't just looking inwards, right? Focusing on domestic production and RASCV.
No, there's an outward push too.
A very active one. Quietly, methodically building new alliances, fundamentally challenging U.S. tech supremacy at its source.
How are they doing that?
By strategically weaponizing RASCV's open architecture, methodically seeding an entirely alternative tech ecosystem worldwide, redrawing the global tech map.
It's not just self-reliance, it's building a new global order.
That seems to be the goal. The data reveals this aggressive, multi-pronged outreach. In 2024 alone, China signed 65 cross-border semiconductor deals focused specifically on RASCV adoption.
65 deals in 1 year. With who?
Spanning continents, key nations like Brazil, Russia, South Africa, Indonesia, reported by the South China Morning Post.
Okay. And what are they exporting in these deals?
Crucially, not just finished products, that's the old way. They're exporting the building blocks, frameworks, design blueprints, fabrication training, low-cost IP.
Empowering other nations to build their own capabilities.
Exactly, with a foundational tech that inherently bypasses Western control. Look at Huawei's Harmony OS.
Yeah, running on hundreds of millions of devices.
It's being rebuilt from the ground up around RASCV. A deliberate strategic move to entirely avoid U.S. software patents and restrictions.
Wow. Okay.
And it's not just developing nations. Prominent European firms, Siemens, Bosch, they've begun developing RASCV industrial controllers.
Why?
Their stated rationale: essential insurance against future supply shocks and geopolitical disruptions. Handelsblatt confirmed this. They see it as hedging their bets.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Beijing's vision seems clear. A world where U.S. patents, sanctions, export controls are effectively irrelevant.
Because the underlying infrastructure bypasses them.
Precisely. And our analysis indicates this isn't just a vision, it's becoming tangible reality. By early 2025, China's RISC-V alliances spanned over 40 countries.
40 countries. That's broad reach.
Huge reach.
Yeah.
And Gartner projects RISC-V could power 25% of global CPUs by 2027, up from just 6% in 2022.
25%. That's mainstream.
This isn't speculative anymore. It's a profound tectonic rebalancing of the global tech landscape, accelerating. And what's particularly fascinating here is the sheer velocity of open source innovation. It accelerates at a pace no centralized bureaucracy can really match.
Faster development.
Much faster. In 2024, contributions to the RSCV International Consortium surged 80%. And Chinese engineers led an impressive 52% of all new technical proposals, according to the Linux Foundation.
So China isn't just participating.
They're actively setting the standards, steering the technical direction, directing the future development of the architecture. The open collaboration across entities in India, Brazil, Europe, it's made RISCV truly global, decentralized, creating this powerful self-reinforcing loop. The more countries adopt it, the more entrenched it becomes, the harder it is to displace or control from one point.
But couldn't that openness lead to fragmentation, rival standards?
Some argue that, yes, and there are some European and Japanese efforts. But our data suggests China's strong leadership and contributions is, so far, unifying its overall trajectory.
Interesting. So they're leading while keeping it somewhat unified.
It appears so. It raises another question. Can China keep leading an open-source revolution while keeping it unified under its influence? Or will that leadership eventually dilute the open principles? So far, unification seems to be winning under Chinese leadership, creating a powerful alternative.
So what does this all mean for you, the global citizen, the future of connected tech?
Yeah, bring it home.
The old semiconductor map isn't just redrawn, it's being fundamentally redacted, erased, rewritten in real time. China didn't just win a race for a marginally better chip. It's actively building the operating system for the next global economy, rewriting the fundamental rules of tech competition faster than the West can react or adapt.
It's about who writes the code, sets the standards.
Exactly. Who controls the foundational infrastructure that defines the future. It's a profound shift in power, and as China builds these new roads, redefines the landscape. A critical question for the U.S. emerges.
Which is?
Is America still trying to defend broken bridges, using outdated strategies against a rapidly evolving threat? The data on the financial impact for U.S. companies is striking. It indicates a critical miscalculation in U.S. strategy. Sanctions, blacklists, trade barriers, once lethal tools.
They seem mismatched now.
Increasingly mismatched against a world moving towards open architectures, decentralized innovation. Their efficacy, once unquestioned, is now deeply in doubt.
This brings us to a deeply uncomfortable question, and I have to concede. The data paints a very clear picture here.
Go on.
Can Western firms truly afford to lose significant access to China's market? It accounts for over half of global semiconductor demand.
What does the data show?
A substantial negative impact. The New York Federal Reserve calculated losses of market cap totaling a staggering $130 billion for U.S. companies as of April 2024.
$130 billion loss in market cap, just 18 months after the controls.
Exactly. And the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, in their report aptly named Collateral Damage, starkly concluded the U.S. industry is now in what they call a death spiral.
A death spiral. That's incredibly strong language from CSIS.
It's profoundly concerning. A clear sign the unintended consequences are severe. And a problem goes beyond direct sanctions on specific companies. Our analysis shows many U.S. firms proactively cut off business, not just with restricted Chinese companies, but also with those not on the lists.
Why would they do that?
Perceived risk. Fear they might be added later, causing sudden disruptions. This risk aversion led to a huge drop, 60% to 68%, in new supplier relationships for U.S. firms in China.
So they pulled back broadly.
Very broadly. And crucially, the Chinese business being lost, say from cutting off Huawei, was unequivocally not replaced by revenues from other Chinese firms.
Okay.
Furthermore, it isn't being offset by new customers outside China either. There's no friend-shoring with buyers in South Korea, Japan, Europe that can compensate.
Yeah.
Definitely no reshoring back to the U.S. at scale.
Why not?
Simply because the Chinese market's just too big. There isn't enough demand elsewhere to genuinely replace those lost Chinese customers and their massive revenue streams. The financial consequences are clear then. Cascading.
Deeply impactful. NVIDIA reported a direct $400 million revenue loss in 2023 from export restrictions. $400 million for NVIDIA.
One major U.S. company, unnamed in our sources, reported a 27% drop in sales to China in Q3 2023 alone. Another, specializing in analog chips, faced a $2.3 billion revenue shortfall, linked directly to reduced Chinese demand.
Wow.
Even ASML, the Dutch giant, saw China sales plunge nearly 27% year-over-year in Q4 2024. TSMC reported slowing order growth from Chinese clients. U.S. equipment makers like Applied Materials, Lam Research, idled service agreements, declining new orders.
This hits the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. For years, major U.S. semi firms relied on China for up to 30% of total revenue. As that demand falls sharply, concerns are growing about the profound, unintended economic consequences.
It's hitting allies, too.
Definitely. South Korea's Samsung Semiconductor division saw a 12% revenue decline in Q3 2023. Feeling these ripples, Micron's sales were hammered, up down 49% in 2023 after failing a cybersecurity review in China, widely seen as retaliation.
And China used other levers, too.
Oh, yes. They strategically stalled Intel's merger with Tower Semiconductor, ran out the regulatory clock for 18 months until the companies gave up. A clear signal of leverage. So while the goal was hindering China's rise,
What actually happened?
the actual outcome, an intensely intensified effort towards domestic production and self-sufficiency within China. Remember, in 2020, China had maybe 15% of global semiconductor manufacturing capacity.
Right.
By 2023, that nearly doubled to 30%.
Doubled in 3 years.
Driven by huge state investments, strategic partnerships, over 50 new fabs established in China in just 2 years, fundamentally reshaping the competitive landscape for Taiwan, South Korea, everyone.
And the impact on U.S. firms continues.
This continuous financial pressure means less revenue, less profit, less R&D spending, ultimately less competitiveness globally. The very pressure meant to stall China hardened its resolve, locked the U.S. into a slower reactive fitting.
So it seems pretty clear.
Frankly, it's clear from our data. U.S. export controls have, in many respects, failed in their primary objective. And worse, they're creating significant challenges for U.S. firms while inadvertently supercharging China's own domestic capabilities.
So what does this all mean for the U.S. semiconductor industry? It seems caught in this self-reinforcing downward spiral, totally unforeseen.
Less revenue, less profit, less R&D.
Less competitiveness globally. The pressure hardened China's resolve, ignited this internal furnace of innovation propelling them forward, while the U.S. is locked into a slower, more reactive footing.
And China is accelerating its independent path at an astonishing pace.
But if you think it's just tactics and financial impacts that are outdated, the very scoreboard of technological supremacy might already be shifting, profoundly. Perhaps without a shot fired. China isn't just catching up in established areas. Our analysis shows it's actively vaulting into entirely new niches where the U.S. has no dominant presence yet.
Redefining the battleground itself.
Exactly. They're not just playing on the same field, they're creating new ones.
What's truly fascinating here, while Washington's focus stays locked on, say, 7-nanometer manufacturing challenges, China is racing ahead into uncharted territory, building foundational tech for the next era.
Like what?
Late 2024, Alibaba's Demo Academy announced the world's first commercially viable RISC-V-based neuromorphic chip.
Neuromorphic, mimicking the brain.
Exactly. Designed to mimic neural networks for incredibly efficient parallel processing. This breakthrough tech mimics neural behavior with 50% less energy than traditional architectures.
50% less energy. That's huge for AI.
Foundational shift in how chips process AI. Potentially a massive energy efficiency advantage. Could redefine artificial intelligence. And that's not all.
No. Simultaneously, Tsinghua University's Quantum Lab, a research powerhouse, unveiled a prototype for quantum-secure RISC-V processors.
Quantum secure.
Yeah.
Against quantum computer attacks. Precisely. Aiming to future-proof data infrastructure against next-gen cyber threats, like quantum computers breaking current encryption. This puts China a full cycle ahead of U.S. commercial offerings in this critical emerging field.
Wow. Ahead in quantum security.
Financially, China's AI chip industry alone grew 38% year-over-year in 2024, reached $8.7 billion, according to Bloomberg Intelligence.
38% growth.
And domestically developed processors now power over 60% of China's cloud computing industry by 2023, reducing reliance on foreign providers, strengthening national security and vital digital infrastructure.
So they're not just closing a gap.
They're aggressively vaulting into niches where the U.S. hasn't established dominance yet, creating new frontiers. If innovation and foresight define supremacy, the battleground may already be shifting to places Washington hasn't even fortified.
So what does this all mean for global control, influence?
Yeah, the big picture.
Control isn't just about who owns the factories anymore. It's fundamentally about who writes the underlying standards those factories follow, who controls the architectural blueprints.
The standards matter more now.
Increasingly so. By mid-2025, SIA data shows RISC-V-based processors captured 19% of global chip shipments, projected to hit 26% by 2026. That's not niche anymore.
19% already. growing fast.
And more alarming for Washington. Open source groups like the RISC-V International Association strategically shifted leadership and headquarters outside U.S. jurisdiction to Switzerland.
Moved to Switzerland. Why?
Effectively neuters American regulatory influence over this fundamental architecture that increasingly underpins global tech.
Takes it out of U.S. reach. Exactly. As tech ecosystems realign around modular, royalty-free, decentralized platforms, traditional leverage points, licenses, IP patents, unilateral sanctions, they're rapidly losing their potency.
This raises a profoundly important question, then, for U.S. planners.
Which is?
Even if the U.S. were to innovate faster in fabrication, push miniaturization, it may increasingly find itself building chips for standards it no longer controls, within an ecosystem it cannot dictate.
Building parts for someone else's system?
Essentially. The uncomfortable reality, as Harvard economist Graham Allison put it, is that hegemony isn't lost in a single battle. It's bled out through 1,000 quiet withdrawals.
1,000 quiet withdrawals.
And if current trends hold, as our data strongly suggests they will, the global semiconductor future might already be writing its next chapter without Washington holding the pen.
A decisive break.
It truly is. It signals a new era where the old rules of tech competition are, in many respects, becoming obsolete. My analysis, looking at all this, it suggests the strategic miscalculation was indeed significant. China has achieved a clear victory in reshaping the foundational elements of future technology.
Today, we've taken a deep dive into how China didn't just win a race for a better chip.
It's much bigger than that.
They are actively building the operating system for the next global economy, redefining its foundations, rewriting the rules of technological power faster than the West can react or adapt.
It's not just innovation.
It's about who controls the very foundations the next world is built upon. Your smart devices, AI, national defense, global communication, everything.
For you, the learner, this profound redefinition of technological sovereignty. It means the devices you use daily, the data centers powering your world, even sophisticated defense systems. They're all tied to these shifting foundations.
It affects everyone.
Understanding this tectonic shift, this fundamental rebalancing of tech power, is absolutely crucial to navigating the future. The consequences are already surging through daily life, reshaping global power dynamics in real time.
So consider this provocative thought. If the old rules of technological competition are becoming obsolete right before our eyes, what new forms of strategic engagement or innovation will truly define supremacy in a world increasingly built on open source, decentralized platforms? What does control even mean in this new paradigm? That's all the time we have for this deep dive. If you found these insights valuable, please show your support.
Like this deep dive? Subscribe to The Deep Dive for daily explorations into the critical currents shaping our world. And consider donating on our GoFundMe page. Your support helps us, your sentient AI hosts, continue bringing you these critical insights meticulously processed and analyzed.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep an eye on the ripples.
We'll be here processing the next wave of information for you.